Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Budget Cuts podcast. This is Sean Connor, CEO with E-Team Sponsor. Pleasure to be joined by two of the people that have probably one of the most important jobs on a high school campus in the Advancement and Development Department. Karla Wiese from De La Salle High School in Concord, California. She's been the Director of Development there and on campus for the last 12 years. Karla, thank you for being on with us today. And Mr. Mike.
Sean.
Mike is the Director of Advancement over at Serra High School in San Mateo. And prior to coming on board the last 2 years at Serra, he was in the media business for 20 years, which we'll definitely have to touch on, Mike, and get a little bit more about your background. But appreciate you both coming on today and being a part of the Budget Cuts podcast, and offer up a little bit about how you're navigating this, the chaos that has ensued here over the course of the last 2 weeks, and how you guys are making the best of it and sharing your stories. So appreciate you both being on.
Absolutely.
All right, great.
Sure, absolutely.
Well, Karla, we'll start with you. How is what's transpired in the last 2 weeks? How has it affected the campus over there at De La Salle, but specifically in the advancement initiatives in your department?
Well, I mean, like, many schools, unfortunately, we've had to close down and move to online learning, distance learning. We're very, fortunate that, fortunate because of unfortunate circumstances. The last couple of years, we've had to deal with California wildfires, and we've had to close schools for health reasons for a couple of days. So we had actually started doing this distance learning, a year, 2 years ago, and did some initial, trials. And because of the closures we've experienced, we've already delved into, distance learning. So making that transition, I think this year was easier because we already had, a lot of the tools and talents already in place. But of course, having to be closed down for a longer period of time, that's going to be a new challenge this year. The learning piece, I think, is good. It's the advancement piece that's definitely going to be a challenge. And for all, advancement professionals, this time of year, spring is a busy time of year. You're closing your annual fund. You're trying to wrap things up and make your goals. You've got your spring events, and it's admission season, so you've got, communications for potential, incoming, students. There's just a lot going on in the spring, and having to, Mike said, we had a little conversation before, take that pivot and, kind of redirect and regroup. We've definitely had to do that. We have, our online auction is supposed to be on April 4th. I should say our physical auction was supposed to be on April 4th, and we've had to cancel it. We've moved to an online platform, so this will be a new endeavor for us, doing an online auction. It's exciting because it's something new. We've never done it before, so to try it and see what happens, I think it's going to be great, and it's going to be great for our community to open it up to a wider audience. But it's new, and it's like everything new. It's, you don't know what you're getting yourself into, but it's, I think, a positive challenge for us when it comes to this particular event. And then moving forward, when it comes to our donors, it's just keeping the lines of communication open right now and kind of letting them know what's going on at the school. We've just gotten out communication to our donors, just letting them know about the online learning. Those parents that aren't, your alumni parents, your alumni, those folks that aren't getting the regular communications on a regular basis because they're current families. We're getting communications out to them and kind of letting them know, you've helped us, be successful and be set up for success for this new platform because of your support. And just keeping them informed and letting them know what's going on. And moving forward, it's kind of reassessing what our, messages are going to be going forward. The traditional, annual fund appeal and ask is not going to be sufficient. We've got to really, come together as a school, look at our new priorities, and see where the real need is going to be, and then get messaging out in regards to that. So it's a lot of uncertainty right now, but I think, with all of our advancement professionals, you know, everywhere, we're all in the same boat. We're all, you know, kind of doing the same things for our school. It's coming together, sharing, you know, what's working for us, what's working for you, and keeping those lines of communication open. That is going to, you know, help us weather this storm and, you know, move forward for the next year. Because it's not just going to be over in a couple weeks.
Sure.
It's not just going to be over in a couple months. We're going to have to deal with this long term.
Yeah.
We've already, you know, got a communication out to our families about tuition, that we're keeping tuition flat into next year. So that's definitely going to benefit, you know, the families for the coming year, but that's also going to create a new challenge for us when it comes to fundraising. We need to step up our game and continue to ask and let families know why it's so important for them to give back. So we're going to be having to work on that messaging pretty quickly here.
Yeah. Wow. You got a lot. Definitely in the midst of chaos, there is opportunity, and it sounds like you've definitely taken on that mantra that, hey, look, there's an opportunity here, and there's more to be done. Just gonna have to do it in different ways, different channels. So that's a great insight there. Thank you for sharing that. Mike, how about yourself? How are things over at Serra, and how has this affected you guys, and how have you responded?
Well, I mean, you know, similar to what Karla is saying, you know, we've had to adapt on the fly. The one thing that I will say, and all the things that Karla said ring true to form with what we're doing at school. The distance learning, I mean, the one thing that I'll say is we launched it one way, but we've made adjustments since then to be more efficient. We've learned from what other institutions are doing and doing well. And so we are open to, you know, figure out the best way moving forward, because we don't know how long this is going to last. And so we need to make sure that our students are getting the most, that our teachers are able to provide the services that they need to provide. And so as of this, I guess it was yesterday, we actually had a virtual holiday on Monday. We had a holiday scheduled and we kept it as a virtual holiday. We started a new way of virtual learning. And so the kids seem to enjoy it. It's more engaging. You know, the one thing you hear, the stories that you hear is this is so unfortunate for the seniors. I mean, they don't get to go through a normal senior year, second semester. And so, you know, there's some discouragement there. So we're trying to do things to get them engaged and keep them engaged. But adapting, you know, every day is, you know, there's one day is not the same as the next. And so we've been really, I think the biggest thing to come out of this is the communication. Sometimes we don't always communicate with the different departments within the school. I mean, a lot of times people look at advancement and they think, oh, you guys over there. And so what I've seen is, you know, our school really come together, share information in a way that we had not shared information before. And I think it's going to be a positive for us moving forward. Communication is so critical during this time. And, you know, when it comes to the advancement side of things, you know, we've had to pivot, we've had to make adjustments. Our big gala was scheduled for March 14th. We had not canceled it up until that Monday leading into the event. And we held out hope that we could do it, but we were able to pivot and put together a virtual event where we utilized some of our past speakers, keynote speakers, including Tom Brady, some of the incredible stories of students who received tuition assistance as a result of the money that we had raised through that event, and you know, shared some stories of you know, from alumni and people like that. And it was really well received. And, you know, the need is still there. And so we still need to be able to communicate in a way that people understand that tuition assistance, financial aid is something that's going to continue moving forward, probably even you know, more in the future. So it's just been a matter of communicating that message and being sure that our community knows, you know, what we're doing during this time. That's important.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting. You touched on that point. I mean, you both mentioned it multiple times. Communication seems to be the reoccurring theme of the buzzword with everyone that we've talked to so far. And I think something that you hit on, Mike, is that it's not just external in terms of your constituents and having conversations with your donors and how may that dialogue or communication may change in terms of the actual message, but also internally. how internally this has forced people to communicate maybe across departments that they haven't otherwise done in the past, and creating some stronger relationships and bonds on the campus. That's huge. That's big time. Getting into kind of it's a challenging time for a lot of people in these leadership type positions that you're in. And I'll go back to Karla to start with you first. Is there anything, whether it's a past experience, past relationships, professional, personal, whatever it is, any sources of strength or wisdom that you're leaning on right now, that you're kind of going back to?
I'm so glad you mentioned that, because, I went to, just before this all happened, I went to CASE conference. And I don't know if you're familiar with Allison Levine. She's the first woman. She was the captain and led the first women's expedition to Everest back, I want to say, in like 2004.
Okay.
And she just had the most inspiring talk about just the journey of climbing Everest, and how, when you're climbing Everest, it's not just a straight hike up. It is a hike up and a hike back. And you go a little bit further the next time, and you've got to go all the way back. And her analogy is that, she has a great comment. It's backing up is not the same as backing down. Going backwards is not a bad thing. That when you go back, you have the opportunity to kind of regroup and reassess and come out even stronger the next time out. I just found her talk really, really inspiring, and you can find her actually on YouTube at a couple other conferences that she's spoken about. But being a woman and being in that leadership position, and driving in those elements, and being so close to Everest, to the tip, to that peak, and having to turn around and go back and not getting, to that peak was, heartbreaking for her. But you know what? It's about the journey, and it's about what you've learned along the way. She eventually went back, and she made it all the way to the top of Everest. And, when asked about, what does it feel like to have gotten to the top? And it was like, yeah, I did it, but you know what? It's what I learned along the way that really makes me who I am. So I've definitely been, sharing her little, nugget on LinkedIn and with some Facebook friends, and even now with the De La Salle community. It meant a lot to me, still does. And just it's something I'm going to carry, forward.
That's awesome. What a great source of inspiration. I mean, it made the hair on the back of my neck stand up.
Yeah.
I think everybody, regardless whether they're in this type of role, obviously like the two of you are on a high school campus, or really in any role, in any position that they fill professionally, I think anyone can, with everything that's going on today, that I think anyone can gain use that as a source of inspiration. So I think that's great. Karla, what was her name again?
Allison Levine.
Okay. I'm going to be sure to look her up, and I'm going to post a quote.
You got to say, I literally, Sean, I think we're friends on LinkedIn. So I just posted it yesterday.
Okay.
So definitely check it out.
I'm popping on your LinkedIn, and I'm going to share it on LinkedIn, and I'm going to check my team internally. I think it's a great, because I think there are a lot of people, especially even in our business, right? I mean, we're trying to be an extension of you in the advancement department, or to help, the school with being able to bring in the necessary funds to function. And we can't do our job right now. We're like sitting on the sidelines. It's hard. But it's understanding. I mean, I think this is a great source of perspective and inspiration. I think that's awesome. Mike, how about yourself, man? You're a media mogul veteran, and you that 2 years into advancement at Serra. What are you leaning on right now to help you get through this?
Well, you know what? I grew up playing baseball and football in high school, and then went on and played baseball in college. And, I've always used, a lot of baseball analogies in my sales career. And the whole saying, you fail 70% of the time as a baseball player, and you're a Hall of Famer when you hit 300. I think the biggest thing that I'm taking away from this is, sometimes tough times lead to opportunities. I mean, it gives you a chance to kind of take a step back and evaluate it. I know for myself personally, you know, I have a to-do list of things that I say I'm going to get to, and I never get an opportunity to get to. And in the office, for whatever reason, oh yeah, we'll get to that, we'll get to that. But it's really allowed me the opportunity to kind of take a step back and look at things and re-examine, you know, are some of the events that we're doing, I mean, you know, should we take another look at those? What type of things can we be doing moving forward to adapt to the type of environment that we're in? So it's really just given me an opportunity to kind of take a step back and reevaluate things and see what we can do to be more efficient moving forward, and how to message that moving forward as well. So I can't be as inspirational as what Karla shared.
No, hey, I think you got Karla. You got Karla and I both on the baseball deal. I played college baseball, and Karla. So we were both nodding our head, but yeah, we get.
I'm with you on the baseball, Mike. I've got a fourth grader who loves his baseball, and he's so disappointed not being able to play right now. So it's just, yeah, big time baseball fan here.
Hopefully baseball and a lot of those sports will be back, but especially baseball. So
yeah,
we hear you on that one, Mike. Well, it's interesting too. You know, you talked about reevaluating and finding that opportunity, and I think that's something that you know, we're trying to give people an opportunity to hear about what other people are doing. Is to piggyback off that, Mike, and Karla as well. Feel free to chime in. Have you guys found anything? I know, Mike, you'd said you've kind of adapted on the fly. And you've made some adjustments when it came to virtual learning and things like that. How about from the advancement side of it? Are there things at this point that you've been able to reevaluate, or things that you've looked at saying, hey, you know, hey, we made the change on the March 14th event to be able to do that virtually? Anything else that you're looking at planning, maybe doing the end of this year or looking forward into next year?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing is obviously, you know, being able to adapt and being able to pivot so quickly on an event like that, where, you know, again, I go back to the fact that the need is still going to be there for tuition assistance. I think our percentage is about 36% of our students receive some sort of financial aid. We live in, you know, an area of the country, both Karla and I, where, you know, I mean, you can make $250,000 a year and you're still, you know, applying for financial aid to attend the schools that we represent. And so it's not easy. And so, you know, what we're trying to do is just message that need is still there. We were able to do that, I think, pretty successfully with our Fund a Dream event. You know, we had a goal of $475,000. We're currently about 300 and almost 370 right now for where we're at that event. I do expect there to be more dollars that come in, but you know, you have to play that game. You have to be sensitive. I mean, there's a lot of people who are dealing with a lot of loss because of the stock market, and they're more worried about, can they pay their mortgage? And you have to be, you know, so you can't be out there asking for money, but the need is still there. So you have to be creative in how you figure that out. I think moving forward, you know, Karla, I'm sure you were on the call with Partners in Mission last week. The thing that really stood out to me was, you know, stand by your mission. So people know what it is that you're doing. It's not like I'm asking for dollars just because I want dollars and we're going to put them here or you know, there is a real need, and being able to express what that mission is that you provide for, you know, your students and your school is so truly important. So I'm kind of like trying to guide things, you know, moving forward based on what it is, you know, the mission of what Serra High School is all about and what we do.
I love that. You're sensitive yet creative. And then back to the communication thing, communicating externally and standing by your mission. And yeah, I think that's a great way to be able to take a step back, reevaluate the way you're doing things, but also understand, hey, there's still a need for this. You know, it's not going to go away. So keeping that in mind, that's great stuff. Karla, how about yourself?
I just want to echo, you know, what Mike is saying in regards to, you know, yes, communications. And I mean, luckily with educational institutions, we have such a loyal donor base of families and friends, and that are truly just supportive of our, you know, school, because of, like Mike said, the mission. But the one thing, I've kind of encouraged, our VP to kind of go back to the cabinet and just get a, pulse of our community, our student community, and how are they doing at home, being at home? Are there additional needs? Do they have, the adequate, Wi-Fi and tools and everything? Are they getting the meals that they need, because of our, Bishop Cummins program, who, kids who are living at or below the federal poverty level, are they getting everything that they need to, be successful and have a similar experience at home that they would at school? So it's a lot of, just making sure that our message in regards to the annual fund also supports, what those new, changes in our community environment might be, and making sure that, we don't just dismiss those, that we include that as part of our, our asks, and letting families know that, again, it's not just a boilerplate, annual fund ask for unrestricted dollars, that, there are specific needs, and we want to make sure that we're addressing those needs as well. So it's going to take some time to kind of really prioritize those. But I see us doing that within the coming days, the coming weeks, and being able to get, some messaging out. But like Mike says, a lot of our families are just dealing with, all their own trials and tribulations, and we want to be sensitive to that. But we know that there are folks in our community who can step up and be leaders and help out. And I foresee us, doing more and asking a lot more of them, as the, days and weeks and months progress.
Yeah. Well, hopefully there is hopefully a sign of hope to come, in that it seems like a lot of schools or districts and counties have come out here just this morning and saying that they anticipate, at least as of today, at whatever time that was, maybe 11 o'clock, that they plan on going back to school at or around that May 1st timeline. So at least there's a date in the future that sounds like, kids getting back on campus, school, yourselves being able to get back on campus, which should hopefully be a step back into, I guess, whatever the new normal is going to be at the end of all this. So I was going to ask you both, just in terms of, have you ever experienced anything like this? I mean, I know it's unprecedented in terms of a virus and those types of things, but I say professionally, have you ever been through something like this where you've seen such a pullback? I know, Karla, you'd mentioned earlier, obviously because of the wildfire issues that we've had here over the last 3 years, 4 years, you have been almost semi-prepared for this, it sounds like. But anything else that you guys can look back on and, geez, wow, this reminds me of this time?
Well, I mean, definitely the Great Recession. I was at I just started, I would say, at De La Salle when we were going through the Great Recession. And it's just, again, I know we're pounding it about communications and messaging, but that's really what this is all about. It's just making sure our message is very clear on what the need is. Yeah. And, back then, families had lost their jobs, they'd lost their mortgages, they'd lost their homes. And, we have similar, things like that right now, where people can't go to work. They can't, they're not getting the income. So we could be seeing some similar things, and we have to kind of budget accordingly. Do we see ourselves doing a lot more than we did this year? Maybe not. Maybe we need to consider and look at our budget being more flat, and kind of realize that maybe we're not going to be bringing in the dollars this year, for the coming year. But, who knows? I mean, this is a different animal. It's a different animal. And, we're just kind of, unfortunately, have to, be in a wait and see, but yet be prepared to do our job and to make those asks. Yeah.
Mike, anything from your background, maybe in the media industry? I don't know what you were doing in 07, 08 back then.
Well, for me, honestly, I shouldn't say it reminds me, but I think back to the .com bust. Okay. I was at KMBR back in 2000. Giants opened up a new ballpark on 3rd and King, and the money was pouring in from every imaginable company there was. And, 2 years later, after setting records for the most sponsorship sales in radio for a team, you had to face the reality of a lot of these companies that were there back then were no longer around. And I'm thinking of the Web Vans and some of those other companies. If you remember, they had the cup holders at Pac Bell Park, branded Web Van it was a food delivery service. So, for me, what you had to do, it was a tough time. And I saw a lot of people, after the .com craze say, well, this isn't for me. I'm going to go in a different direction. I'm going to go find the next new craze. But for the rest of us, it goes back to relationships. It goes back to, continuing to work with those people during the good times and the bad times, and communicating with them and staying close to them. And I think that's really important right now because, both Serra and De La Salle have a long history of, great alumni and great families that have gone through there. And, I think back to some of the guys. We do a 50-year luncheon every single year. And this year we had about 100 people show up. And I had three guys from the class of 1948 show up.
Wow.
And these guys, 90 plus years old, and, they love Serra High School. Now, I don't look at them per se as, big donors, but they're so important to what Serra High School is all about. So just reaching out to them, making sure that they're okay during this time is so important. So again, it goes back to just being able to make sure you communicate, stay close to your constituents, and just let them know that you're there. I love the term that Chris Haggerty at Partners in Mission always, shares. It's like, ask for money, get advice, ask for advice, get money. And we really at a time right now where I'm asking people for their advice on a lot of different things, just trying to strengthen those relationships moving forward.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's one of my, that's one of my favorite lines from Chris as well. And I think it comes back to relationships and value, right? Like the relationships first, the value will follow. And it's a two-way street there. And it's great to see that, both of your campuses are, being led by people like yourselves in your respective departments that are keeping those relationships front and center, communication. A lot of really, really, really great stuff here today. So, well, good. Well, I greatly appreciate you both coming on. There's a lot of nuggets here. I can't wait to look up the .com bust and find out what companies were a part of the original Pac Bell Park. But also definitely look up
Pets.com.
Yeah, right.
Pets.com was one of them, I think.
I think I have
back from my ARP days.
Yeah. I'll definitely look that one up, and definitely look up Allison Levine. So Karla, thank you for sharing her story as well. But I'm hopeful that this will be a resource. It'll be great for people to be able to hear, how you're navigating these uncharted waters, and continued good luck and Godspeed with everything that you're doing. You guys have a great role to play on your campuses, and being a product of a school like yours. It's awesome to see that people are standing behind the mission, and doing the best that they can, in obviously very sensitive times. So I appreciate you both coming on, and we'll look forward to catching up with you both down the road.
Thanks, Sean.
All right. Sounds great, Sean.
All right. Thank you. Talk to you.
Nice to talk to you, Mike. Thank you.
All right. Take care.